and perplexed, they asked one another, "What does this mean?" Some, however, made fun of them and said, "They have had too much wine." Then Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice, and addressed the crowd. "Fellow Jews, and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. These men are not drunk as you suppose. It's only 9 in the morning. No, this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your men will see visions, your old men will dream dreams. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy. I will show wonders in the heaven above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Men of Israel, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. This man was handed over to you by God's set purpose and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross.
Hi, here's Bob Hatton from Germany. I'm glad to greet you this morning or today. It's good that you've tuned in again. We're looking at what happened on the day of Pentecost, and when the people were observing how the Holy Spirit was affecting the 120 who had just received him, a group of people, they said, these people are mad, they're drunk. And when Peter heard that, he stood up and he started to speak. And he said, these people are not drunk as you suppose, because it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. The pubs are not open yet. But this is that which is spoken of in the prophet Joel. And then he begins to quote quite a long quotation from the book of Joel, one of the Old Testament prophets at the end of the New Testament, at the end of the Old Testament. And he says that that God says that he will pour down his spirit upon all flesh, and what's going to happen, that sons and daughters are going to prophesy, and young men will see visions, and old men will dream dreams, and so on. And then he goes on to say some strange things, that there will be wonders in heaven, and that there will be signs on earth, and that the moon will turn to blood and stars will fall from the sky, and so on. And that's it. He's using a language which is apocalyptic, and he's quoting, of course, from a prophetic book in the Old Testament, and it sounds very similar to the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, also an apocalyptic book that's trying to reveal things that are pretty difficult to understand. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to try to explain these things, because, to be honest, I don't know what they mean, but except that God is going to do some drastic things in heaven, and do some drastic things on earth, and just allow things to happen. Now, this has been happening over the last few years, that we have gone from one crisis to another crisis. I think it was 2008, and we were talking about the financial crisis, when the banks and it seemed to go out of control. The financial world was out of control, and people were wondering, what on earth can we do to get our economies back into order? Then just a few years previously, I think it was 2015, we were talking about the refugee crisis, when, especially here in Germany, about 1 million people came from other countries looking for refuge here, and kind of swamping the country, bringing a lot of insecurity to people who were afraid of strange culture and so on. And now we're in this coronavirus crisis, where the health system seems to be breaking down, just showing us all the time that we are not in control of what is happening. And I think what God is saying through each of these crises is that, please take me seriously again. take me seriously again. And my message to us this morning, and I hope it's going to be a word of encouragement, is let's take God seriously again. Let's seek him. Let's ask what does he want from me. Let's not complain about the politicians or about Erg and anybody else. Let's not look for some kind of conspiracy what's going on. Well, let's just ask God, what do you want me? How can I be serious about you? Now, in the year 2004, on Boxing Day, the second day of Christmas, a terrible tsunami visited South Asia and Southeast Asia, and one of the countries that I'm involved is Sri Lanka. And I remember that lots of our friends in Sri Lanka, they were devastated by this natural catastrophe. They lost their houses and so on, and we were able to rebuild or build 72 houses. We built a children's home. We did a number of other things in that country, and we became very, very connected to the country. But as I talked to people, and of course we met many people who had lost family members, but we also met people who experienced miracles. We spoke to a group of people in the city of Galle in the south of Sri Lanka, and they told us that they came out of their house after the first wave had come and destroyed lots of stuff around them, and suddenly they saw the second wave coming to them. And this second wave, it was about 5 meters high, about 15 to 20 feet high, and they were absolutely terrified. There was nowhere for them to run to. And what did they do? They climbed onto the outhouse that was standing there. They climbed on top of this little toilet house, which is about 1 square meter, and there's about 10 of them, and they stood up on top of this house, and they held on to one another, and they started to pray. And they said what happened when this 5 meter wave got nearer, it just crashed down in front of the outhouse. It went past them, and then it rose up at the other side, and they were safe. And we went to that area. We saw that place. All the houses were demolished. There was just stones, except for this one little outhouse which remained as it remained. And God showed himself in this disaster as the one who was able to save. So friends, I would ask you today and for this week just to ask God one question: is what do you want? How do you want me to take you seriously in these days? Just speak to me, reveal yourself to me, and I'll listen to you. Thanks very much for listening. Bob Hatton from Germany.